What a beautiful day to do some gaming. Got the fedora on, I'm feeling in my element. I feel fucking great. My life at the minute, it just feels like one big badly made skit at the beginning of a video, but we've always got time to tune out a little bit and do some gaming. Wait, what the fuck is that? Doom Eternal? Oh no. Oh god no. The last game was too much for me. There's another one. What the fuck am I gonna do? I'm gonna lose my entire life to this game. Oh god. I can already feel all that ripping and tearing. I can feel it coursing through my fucking veins. Having just finished Doom Eternal moments before beginning writing this, all I can say is that this is the perfect sequel to its predecessor, Doom 2016. The first game in this Doom reboot was in my eyes an FPS masterpiece, taking elements from the very original Doom games whilst modernising everything into a beautifully executed high-intensity arena shooting madness. I love Doom 2016. You can watch my review of that game if you really want to. It kinda highlights why exactly I love it so much, but I digress. Today, we're here to talk about Doom Eternal, a game I've been waiting for about 4 years now. This game is everything that sequels should be, taking the core story and gameplay elements from the first game and expanding on them exponentially. We got new mobility, new guns, new missions, new collectibles, new characters, new challenges, and so much fucking more. I think sequels, especially these days, can be incredibly hit or miss. The effectiveness of a sequel is all dependent on whether or not it can take the original concept and build upon what made it great. A lot of games have successfully done this over the years. Halo 2, AC2, which did a video on that game, Modern Warfare 2, Kingdom Hearts 2, just to name a few sequels that have come to mind, and I think these are all near perfect. All these games took the concept of their predecessors and amplified it to something completely new that still reflected what the original game did. And this is exactly what id Software and Bethesda had planned for Doom Eternal before its release. Doom 2016 was honestly such a treat. That game began as a guilty pleasure of mine, but quickly became one of my favourite releases of that year. If you've been with the channel for a while now, you'd know what I think about that game. I'd recommend going back and watching that review to understand where I stand with the rebooted Doom series. If you don't want to go back and watch it, well, I'll just say that I love that game so much and still play it to this day when I get a little bit bored. It's always fun to be able to boot up Doom and have some mindless fun. But is it actually mindless? We've already established that Doom isn't just a mindless shooter, and that there's so much more to it than that. So what does Eternal bring to the table that keeps it this way? How does Doom Eternal enrich the gameplay of its predecessor? And where does Doom Eternal take the story that was set up in the previous game? Let's dive in. I personally think that Doom 2016 was id Software and Bethesda catching lightning in a bottle, which is something that is very difficult to replicate, nearly impossible. Which is why Doom Eternal is longer, has double the demons, more boss fights, and more importantly, more demigod bicep. The creative director for Doom Eternal, Hugo Martin, was largely critical of Doom 2016 and planned on improving all aspects of the game for the sequel. Here's an interesting quote he said. Doom 2016 was a one-trick pony. Our combat was world class, but everything else in the game wasn't necessarily up to the level of the combat. Every aspect of the game had to get better. This isn't something you see openly admitted by a lot of developers these days. He was openly critical of his own game, recognising its strengths as well as where it fell short, and believe me, there are places where Doom 2016 fell short. The colour palette and playable areas of each mission got tiring towards the end, the super shotgun was too overpowered and basically made a lot of the other weapons obsolete, the game had seemingly no direction in terms of story, and things were just happening randomly for little to no reason. The bottom line is, Hugo was determined to make Eternal even more amazing than the first game, by fixing certain key issues that were present in the first installment. It's commendable to see a creative developer with this attitude, which is probably why Doom Eternal turned out to be so fucking good. Doom Eternal fixes a lot of these big issues, a huge array of playable areas. The game forces you to switch weapons a lot due to tighter resource management, and they even went as far as adding in actual comprehensive story that didn't just take a back seat. So in today's video we're going to be looking at Doom 2016 a lot to use as a reference point as to how the game has improved. I only think it's fitting to begin talking about Eternal where it all starts, right at the beginning of the game.
Against all the evil that hell can conjure, all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will send unto them only you. Rip and tear until it is done.
Oh shit! He said the game's catchphrase. That's fucking sick.
The game begins with a pretty strong setup in my opinion. There's been a distress call from Earth as the planet is being infested by demons. You can see glowing red covering the planet's surface. Earth is in turmoil and there's only one man that could stop the demons and drive them back to the depths of hell, the Doomslayer. We have this fucking sick introductory cutscene which shows the Doomslayer assembling his arsenal and getting ready for the next adventure. The game wastes no time at all, even less time than the first game did. In Doom 2016 you had this little scripted cutscene before you get to play. In Eternal, you just pretty much jump straight into it, shotgun in hand. The game immediately feels familiar because at the end of the day, it plays pretty much the same as the first one. It feels good to get back into Doom after waiting for the sequel for so long. You also don't have to unlock the double jump boots again. You already start the game with them, which is nice because it shows that they aren't just reusing old mechanics as upgrades. All the upgrades in this game are going to be new, apart from the runes, but we'll get to that later. Something that I really appreciate from Doom is that the entire experience is based around its gameplay. The game doesn't sacrifice any of its gameplay because it puts fun at the front and center. The goal was to make Doom Eternal a pure unfiltered action FPS experience, and I think it achieves exactly that the moment it drops you into the game. The first mission is genuinely so fun because it isn't too difficult or intense that it overwhelms you, but it isn't too easy either. It settles you in and perfectly sets the pace for the rest of the game. At the end of the first mission, you kick down this door and find inside a Hell Priest, which sets up the immediate story. To quell the forces of Hell, you must seek all three Hell Priests and end them, destroying their souls. The Doomslayer wastes no time decapitating the Hell Priest, and that is the end of the first mission. What a way to introduce us to the first plot device. We then jump down to the surface of the planet and are met with an absolutely beautiful view of Earth during the demonic invasion. Look how fucking good this looks. The term hell on Earth has never been more literal. It looks like they've brought hell to Earth with fire and brimstone everywhere, lava lakes, and a huge fucking titan. Yeah, those big fucking demons that were alluded to in the first game, they're on Earth now, wreaking havoc and generally walking around. That's pretty much, they just walk around. Okay. The atmosphere in this first mission is superb, with the destroyed buildings and cacodemons just flying around freely. This mission immediately shows the dire situation of Earth. Humanity is on the back foot and there's only one person that can save the world. You. Now let's take a step back and chat about the story for a bit. This premise is a really strong setup to what would end up being a kinda lackluster story. Now before you all jump down my throat for criticizing the game, even though the whole introduction was to set up how much I loved it, the story definitely wasn't amazing, but I would be lying if it didn't meet my expectations. Doom 2016 had a similar issue in which the story took a backseat to the gameplay. I say issue in quotation marks because it really wasn't an issue at all. Doom 2016's story was straightforward, no bullshit, to the point, but served as a contextual reason to motivate the player to see the game through until the end. In my eyes, it was perfect for what Doom needed. Doom Eternal's story is somewhat the same, although it tries to do a little bit more than the first game, and sadly, to me and to many others, it falls short. I say sadly, I'm not too bothered personally, the game is still fantastic, but it's a shame. The characters are kind of forgettable, I also don't remember a lot of story points past the initial premise, and the main villain, the Khan Maker, is honestly really badly executed, to the point where I didn't actually realise she was the main villain until I was nearing the end of the game. They didn't do a very good job of setting up her character. Additionally, the cutscenes of the game start off really strong, but for some reason in the second half of the game there's barely any cutscenes, and the ones that do happen are poorly composed. Strange. With all that said though, there are still things I enjoyed about the story, such as Doomguy's origins, the Icon of Sin backstory, Doomslayer taking over the BFG 10,000 facility and blowing up Mars, the story of the Night Sentinels, and finally, probably my favourite part of the game, reclaiming Samuel Hayden, using him as your own personal AI, even though his consciousness is living and breathing. I've seen people call this entire game forgettable, and while I do agree in some places, I think this game nails set pieces and it also nails showing the power of the Doomslayer. All in all, the story of Doom Eternal really tried to do something different and tried to show the world that Doom can be more than a mindless shooter, and I really appreciate this effort. I'm sure they'll nail it in the next game, but the story wasn't everything some people were hoping for. As for myself, I can't really say I'm disappointing because I don't play Doom for the story, and what we did get I'd actually say I overall enjoyed, even if it may have been a bit sloppy and forgettable in places. But we're not here to talk about the story. No. I know what you're all here for. You're here for that exhilarating rip and tear gameplay that was adored by fans of Doom 2016, and my god, has it been refined, improved, and dare I say it, perfected in Doom Eternal. I played the game on Nightmare, as any respectable gamer should, and I have to say that even on this difficulty, it was just beautiful to play through, and it really highlights the new heights that the power fantasy FPS has been taken to as a result of this game. As in Doom 2016, you start off with the regular combat shotgun, and as you progress through each level, you start to accrue new weapons in your arsenal, each coming with their own unique animation to let you know that you just picked up a sick new weapon, which always gets me excited to include the weapon in my playstyle. This is something that's done so seamlessly in this game. The integration of new weapons. It's useful to use every single weapon in your arsenal to your advantage. You can quick swap weapons by tapping the right bumper, pressing R1 or using the scroll wheel on PC, or you can use the more accessible weapon wheel, which slows the gameplay down to nearly a halt and gives you time to choose your next weapon. Towards the end of the game, I started utilizing a technique called quick switching, in which you string together combos on enemies using different weapons. This is effective at taking down the more brutish enemies in the game that can take a lot of firepower, and this is what I mean about integrating each weapon into your playstyle. Once you start getting into the habit of using quick switching, the genius of the combat really becomes obvious. The combat rewards you for using every weapon in the Doomslayer's arsenal, much more than the first game did. In Doom 2016, the super shotgun reigned supreme. The other weapons were good, but none of them had the same sheer kick as the super shotgun. In Doom Eternal, it seems as if weapons have been rethought and rebalanced so that everything in your arsenal becomes useful depending on your scenario. The super shotgun is still an all-round versatile beast, the chain gun is perfect for crowd control, the ballista is perfect for taking care of flying enemies, the rocket launcher is perfect for inflicting damage on armoured enemies, and the BFG 9000 is still the same old killing machine. The weapons in this game are so defined, much more so than the first game. I also love the new designs for these weapons too, although I had grown accustomed to the way they looked in the first game. The fiery rocket launcher, the laser chain gun, and the classic looking plasma rifle all look so much better and more interesting than their Doom 2016 counterparts. The weapons in this game are absolutely beautiful, but this isn't where the Doomslayer's arsenal ends. Doom Eternal sees the introduction of a few new utilities that's going to help you rip and tear your way through these filthy demons. As I've said, Doom Eternal overall feels very familiar, which sets the perfect canvas to add new utilities and abilities to your arsenal, and all of them are useful to the way you play the game. There isn't one ability in the game that isn't super useful. This is Doom's way of telling you that you have to use everything you've got to your advantage, and when playing on the higher difficulties, this is most definitely the case. Let's look at the first new addition to our toys, the Doom Blade. Now, this doesn't actually do anything in game, it's just cosmetic, but it really does open a lot of avenues for cool looking glory kills, which remain one of your most useful tools during combat, serving as a way to reclaim lost health. Slicing demons up is pretty fun. Next up is the shoulder mounted grenade launcher, which also allows you to shoot either a frag grenade or ice grenade. These are both pretty self-explanatory. Frag grenades are your classic grenades that simply explode after being launched, and ice grenades are a little bit more situational because they freeze enemies in place. So if you've got a big group of enemies, it's really effective to just lob your ice grenade in the middle to give yourself a breather from the heat of combat for a few seconds. The game also features more mobility, with the dash feature making it easier to dodge projectiles, the swing ability adding more vertical accessibility to arenas, and the wall climb adding to those mind-numbing platform sections from the first game. The new flamethrower or flame belch adds a new level of resource management to the game because it allows you to draw armor from enemies that are on fire, which is pretty useful in a pinch. There's a new ability called called Blood Punch, which is basically an area of effect attack that is activated when you punch an enemy. Can't tell you how many times this got me out of trouble, especially against armoured enemies like the Cyber Mancubus. Blood Punch is really powerful and receives a few upgrades as you progress through the game. Another ability tied to the story is Crucible Blade, a weapon that has 3 charges, very rare ammo, but kills any enemy in the game in a single swing. It's absolutely beautiful. And how exactly can I forget our good old trusty chainsaw, which takes more of a starring role in Doom Eternal's combat system. You no longer need to collect fuel to be able to use it. It recharges on its own, however you can still collect up to 3 fuel canisters to then do chainsaw finishes on stronger enemies and get more ammo. See what they did? Glory kills for health, Flame Belch for armor, and Chainsaw for ammo. The combat system is built upon 3 pillars of resource management, which is very important to the way the game flows. Ammo controls your damage output, health controls the risks you're willing to take during combat, and armor works as a good backup when things go wrong. The gameplay system has clearly been meticulously optimized because every combat encounter flows like absolute butter. It's truly beautiful. Anyways, I'm forgetting myself a little bit. There's one more added ability which has been one of the staples of the game's marketing, and that is the meat hook attachment for the super shotgun. The ability to grapple to enemies adds so many possibilities for the way combat and movement works in the game. You can use the claw not only as a weapon, but as a way to navigate each arena. Upon completing weapon mastery for the super shotgun, the meat hook becomes a fire meat hook, which sets enemies on fire, causing them to drop armor when they die. And I honestly used this ability all of the time. It's applicable in a lot of different circumstances, and it is so fucking fun to use. Like, it makes the super shotgun probably the most enjoyable gun to use in the entire game, because you can just grapple about, get your armor back whenever you need it, and it's just a fucking blast. I think I've said enough. The Doomslayer is so much more powerful in this game, but does all this new stuff at your disposal add to the overall gameplay and combat, or does it make the game feel confusing or too complicated? Well, as I've said before, the core elements of the combat are based around resource management and keeping your ammo, health and armor up by using glory kills, a chainsaw and flame belch, and I think this system is perfect. But is it used to its fullest potential? Well, I think the biggest issue of the game for me is the ammo count. The ammo available in Doom 2016 is much higher than the ammo in Doom Eternal. To put this into perspective, the maximum amount of shotgun shells you could carry in Doom 2016 was 60. In Eternal, it's 24. I see why they did this. They wanted Eternal to be more strategic. They wanted people to have to think about their ammo, instead of blindly unloading the super shotgun into enemies that don't need that firepower. But let's be honest, it really isn't a fun experience when towards the end of the game, you spend half the time running around with low ammo on the screen. I spent probably too much time walking around looking for ammo and resources, which in my opinion breaks up the flow of the gameplay, much like how the boring and pointless jumping puzzles ruin the flow of gameplay in Doom 2016. Doom doesn't need things that take the player out of the immediate experience. It takes away from the facade that you are the Doomslayer who can kill a titan with his bare hands when you're running around scavenging for a few more shotgun shells. It's also bullshit. When you upgrade your ammo capacity using the Sentinel crystals, you only get 2 more shotgun shells every time, meaning that when you spend that upgrade token, you only get to fire the super shotgun essentially 1 more time than you usually would, which is just completely pointless in my opinion. I really admire the effort to make the game more strategic, to make people think about the guns they're using and the ammo they're expending, but like, what's the point in that when you literally always have a chainsaw that can immediately refill your ammo anyways? All it's doing is taking you out of the immediate combat experience so you can find a weak enemy to use the chainsaw on, so you can get back to the game, and my god, the low ammo count forces you to use the chainsaw far too much in my opinion. Towards the end of the game, it just takes you out of the combat because you have to go chainsaw kill some cannon fodder demon to get your ammo back. Could you not have just given us more ammo so that you have to use the chainsaw less? You know, the way that it was done in the first game and was perfectly fine and didn't need changing? Enough negativity. This ammo problem really doesn't take away from the game itself. It's never felt better to pulverize demons than it does in Doom Eternal. The new mobility makes the game more intense than ever. The weapons have more punch than ever, and using all of the abilities in conjunction with each other honestly offers an experience that I don't think can be matched in terms of pure FPS fun. Doom Eternal in many ways revolutionizes the FPS, which is something that I didn't think I'd be able to say in 2020. Now comes one of my favourite parts of the game, the enemy design. If you've watched my previous retrospective on Doom 2016, you'd know how much I adore the enemy design in these games. Each demon is unique and distinct, offering a different experience fighting each one, and there have been a lot of new and interesting additions to the roster of Hellspawn this time around. Pain Elementals are essentially the older brother of Cacodemons, and fuck me do they look absolutely repulsive. The Archvile summons additional enemies to the arena as well as casting unholy magic at you. Prowlers are teleporting hunters that can stalk you and fuck your shit up at a moment's notice. Whiplashes are like demonic snakes that slither around the battlefield, spamming its surprisingly long range whip attacks, which do devastating damage. These dudes are fucking annoying. Dread Knights, which are essentially Hell Knights but on steroids. The Tyrant is basically the Cyber Demon from Doom 2016, only less mobile. Arachnotrons make a turn from the classic Doom games and serve as a long-range demon which rains projectiles on you from afar. I'm sure this analogy has been used by a lot of other content creators, but Doom is kind of like a game of chess, with the Doomslayer being the ultimate piece. Each piece or enemy has their own unique and situational advantages and disadvantages, but it's about using their disadvantages to your advantage by selecting the right weapon or ability for the job. As well as new enemies, Doom Eternal also reworked a lot of the old enemies too, redesigning the Mancubus to resemble how it looked in the older games, tweaking the design of the Cacodemons, Imps and Pinkies ever so slightly, but these small changes improve the models exponentially. Less certainly is more in this case. These reused enemies also have new mechanics which keep them fresh and new, being able to launch a grenade into a Cacodemon's mouth, or being able to shoot the flesh and muscle off a Baron of Hell to reveal their fiery skeleton. The point is, these enemies have been tweaked since the last game, and these tweaks make all the difference. Doom Eternal is really good at keeping the old stuff fresh whilst also letting the new stuff shine. Speaking of new stuff, this game features a lot more interesting bosses than the first game. Let's start with the Doom Hunter. An amazing addition to the game. This enemy starts off as a boss but becomes a rare enemy that likes to show up in big fights, which is a really good way of integrating this enemy into the game. It really shows the progression you make as you progress through the game. What was once a boss is now just a normal enemy, even though it has the same health and moveset. I love this boss so much. I think it's the most fun and well balanced boss to fight in the game. You have to shoot its shield with an energy weapon to be able to damage it, and you can also shoot the sled to weaken him. It got to the point where I got so good at killing these guys that I was able to kill them in a matter of seconds towards the end of the game, despite having trouble with them upon my first encounter. A great example of how this game's combat is easy to learn but hard to master. The Gladiator was a pretty decent fight as far as bosses go. I really like the boss arena, and the design of this dude is definitely cool, but I felt like his moveset was just too limited. He cycles the same 3 or 4 attacks, can summon a shield to shoot your bullets back at you, and does this weird move where he puts you in a game of dodge the squiggly line before he flies into you. Don't get me wrong, I actually enjoyed this boss because of its multiple phases, and I think the fact that this boss has 2 phases really saves it in my opinion. I just wish his second phase had more moves to deal with. On the whole though, the Gladiator is a solid fight and definitely the one I had the most trouble beating. We also have the Khan Maker boss fight. I really don't know what to say about this one. It's alright, a little bit too easy in my opinion, because you can just spam her with rockets and then use the Khan Maker drones as a way to immediately refill your rockets. This boss is cool in concept, but honestly just far too easy, even on nightmare difficulty. The final boss in this game is the Icon of Sin, which is actually a pretty intense fight. It showcases all of the gameplay mechanics that have shown up so far throughout the game, which is honestly what final bosses should do. They should force the player to exercise everything they've learned throughout the game. This boss does exactly that, throwing every single type of demon at you in one huge 2-phase fight. This boss may not be the most conventional boss fight, and it may have not ultimately been what I wanted for a final boss from Eternal, but it has grown on me since completing the game, and I think it really gets the job done in terms of spectacle and really showcases how far you've come since the beginning of the game. And last but not least, I missed this one out on purpose because of the controversy surrounding him. The Marauder. The Marauder is a hit or miss boss in my opinion. I actually really like this enemy. It's challenging, it's fast, uses a shotgun, dashes around the arena to dodge your attack, sends projectiles at you and all that jazz. But honestly, I think this enemy should have been kept for one-on-one fights only. This dude is meant to be your equal. And because of that fact, the Marauder is a hyper-aggressive enemy type. He doesn't play well with other demons. In fact, he completely ruins the flow of the combat because all he does is sprint straight at you when you're trying to fend off other demons. This has led to a lot of people straight up hating the Marauder enemy. Now, I know you could say,
oh, just get good at the game, he isn't that difficult.
And you're right. He isn't that difficult. If you're using the ballista and the super shotgun and comboing him with those, you can take the Marauder out pretty damn quickly. It's more the fact that he brings the flow of the nicely fluid combat to a slow crawl. It's annoyingly handicapping. It forces you to slow down, and in a game in which every mechanic is telling you that you have to be fast and always moving, fighting the Marauder amongst other demons feels like you're going against the grain, and it feels really unnatural to play. It's a real shame because I love this boss, but I can't help but groan whenever I see him pop up in a combat situation. I think they should have kept him for one-on-one fights, as I've said, and had him show up multiple times in the game's story, being more powerful and having more abilities each time you meet him. All in all, I think the enemy types in this game are fucking amazing. It's crazy to me how they were able to keep everything feeling fresh and new. They took what worked in 2016 and just built on those strong foundations. The roster of enemies in Doom Eternal is unparalleled, and you can feel the love and passion that went into designing each one as you play. Truly monumental stuff. Let's take another step back and talk about the level design a little bit. I feel like I could talk about the way these missions look and play forever. If you thought the first game had pretty graphics and nice looking environments, well, you're going to be blown away by Eternal. They absolutely nailed the look of each mission. I always found myself just admiring the environments because they were just so meticulously designed. The level designers in this game have honestly outdone themselves, which is a testament to how good this game is. Everything has been improved, all the way from the gameplay mechanics and guns to the level design. And I'm playing this on the original Xbox One. I've been using the same console since 2013, and this game still looks beautiful on a 7-year-old console. The thing is with Doom Eternal is that not only are the levels great from a cosmetic standpoint, but they also have so much depth with secrets, collectibles, optional side content, challenges and upgrades. You got stuff like codex entries which give you lore on the game's universe, collectible toys of each demon in the game, vinyl records that allow you to listen to the soundtracks of previous games in the series, cheat codes, as well as things that actually help you in the game, like Sentinel batteries that allow you to unlock doors in the Fortress of Doom that have useful items inside, the Praetor suit tokens which can be used to upgrade certain abilities for the Praetor suit, mod bots which allow you to add powerful attachments to your weapons which change the way they work and look, Sentinel crystals that are used to upgrade ammo capacity as well as your maximum health and armor, runes that offer passive benefits to the way you play the game, and finally mastery tokens which serve as a way to skip past the mastery challenges of weapons. Yeah, the game is full to the brim with optional things to collect and secrets to discover. It's an achievement hunter's dream. And that's not all. Most missions in the game have their own unique combat encounter challenges in the form of Slayer Gates and secret timed Gore Nest encounters. Slayer Gates are some of the most fun I've had in this game. They're the biggest challenge in this game and offer the widest onslaught of enemies out of any encounter. The goal is simple. Find the Slayer Gate key during the mission, open the Slayer Gate, activate the Gore Nest, and kill every enemy inside the arena to complete the challenge. This was one of the best things they added into Doom Eternal. I really enjoyed the challenge. Get into a real flow and it's just so fun jumping around and bobbing and weaving through the enemies. Please bring back Slayer Gates in the next game. They are so stupidly fun. Additionally, after completing each Slayer Gate, you get something called an Empyrean Key. Once you collect all 6 Empyrean Keys, you can unlock a secret weapon called the Unmaker, which shares an ammo with the BFG, and my god, is it a pleasure to use. It's got an incredibly fast fire rate, shoots beams of lasers and fills anything with holes. It's beautiful, and what's great about it is that it doesn't replace the BFG. You can still use both, and it's still advised to use both, because again, Doom's combat is like a game of chess, and you need different weapons to be able to serve different purposes, much like how different chess pieces serve different purposes. Anyways, carrying on, secret gore encounter nests are a little bit different, but still offer a different challenge. Once activating the glowing pink gore nest, you have a different, fuck off, why am I saying different so much? Once activating the glowing pink gore nest, you have a certain amount of time to dispatch of a few enemies before the time runs out, and you have to start again. It's basically a race to defeat enemies. Now, I love the idea of these gore nests. In fact, I'd say these activities are only second to Slayer Gates, but in my opinion, they just weren't difficult enough. The ones that I enjoyed the most were the ones that left no room for error at all. The ones that forced you to learn precise enemy placing and to use the correct weapons for the job. Some of these secret encounters were amazing. On the other hand, There were others that I finished first try with no issue. I didn't feel as if I'd accomplished anything, I just felt like I ticked another secret off the list. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed them, but I think if id Software go back to these secret encounters, then they should bump up the difficulty significantly. If you're gonna give us time trials, make them time trials. These optional combat objectives are basically the spiritual successors to the rune trials from Doom 2016, which I enjoyed very much, so it was great to see them coming back in Doom Eternal, and this time they were even better than before. Doom is no stranger to secrets. In fact, I'd say that hidden rooms and little collectibles are Doom's bread and butter, and it's great to see that even as a new modern shooter, Doom still offers a wide range of secrets and additional content for people that want it. It's a layer of depth that could have been overlooked by developers, but it wasn't, which is a testament to their passion to bring us a game that ticks all of our metaphorical boxes. Something I briefly want to touch upon is the Fortress of Doom, as this is actually a huge part of the downtime in the game. I think the addition of a hub world was a great idea on id Software's part. In the Fortress of Doom, you can listen to ARC broadcasts that further the game's story and world building, listen to the many albums you collect throughout the game, select missions to replay, complete master levels that are really intense reworked versions of the base levels, use Sentinel batteries to access additional upgrades as I mentioned earlier, unlock the Unmaker, and you can also go to the Demon Prison and practice your weapons and abilities. There's lots of stuff to do in the Fortress of Doom, and it's really impressive. However, I think the best thing about the Fortress of Doom is the attention to detail that the developers demonstrate, especially in Doomguy's room. You've got a portrait of the Slayer and his pet bunny Daisy, a wall of all of Doomguy's weapons that allows you to inspect each of them, a shelf which showcases all of the collectible toys you found throughout the game, a bunch of really cool Doom themed guitars, a fucking grindstone and an anvil, a 3-monitor gaming PC setup. I see Doomguy's a cultured man. An old PC that allows you to play Doom 1 and 2, the old Praetor suit from Doom 2016, an Argent cell box from Doom 2016, and something really interesting in my opinion is the pistol design that was intended to be used in Doom Eternal before it was cut, could be found on the table, disassembled. But by far the best nuance about the Doomslayer's room has gotta be the bookshelf. I can tell the designers had a lot of fun making this because each book has its own spine with a unique title. They're pretty funny. Vault Dweller's Survival Guide, which is obviously a reference to Fallout. To Pray or Not to Pray, a reference to Prey, another Bethesda title. Green Eggs and Pentagram, a reference to Green Eggs and Ham, the Dr. Seuss book. To Kill a Mocking Demon, The Great Gutsby, Demon Farm, The Very Hungry Cacodemon, Slaystein, 50 Shades of Slay, and Dungeons and Demons 6th edition. There's also copies of Doom, Quake, Quake 2 Arena, The Art of Doom, a box with Doom's original slogan on it, where the sanest place is behind a trigger. Yep, I'm pretty sure that slogan went down well when the Columbine school shootings happened. And finally, we have a copy of Doom 2. This little bookshelf filled with all of the puns and Easter eggs is the clearest proof you really need that the developers of this game really cared about this project. They obviously loved making this game and had a ton of fun doing so. The best experiences come from games that were made with pure fun in mind. Okay, so we've been through the game's story, mechanics, gameplay, enemy types, bosses, weapons, level design, collectibles, secrets, and the Fortress of Doom. I guess that only leaves us with... Oh no. Oh no.
Oh god. Oh thank fuck, I didn't even want to play that piece of shit anyway. Either way, Doom's multiplayer component does not bother me because you can enjoy the single player without even dreaming of loading up the multiplayer. And the single player is the main component of the game that was developed directly by id Software, so that's the only part of the game that I really care about. Doom 2016's multiplayer is ultimately kind of a pointless component, which is probably why they chose to remove it in the upcoming Doom Eternal in favour of a more creative, interesting mode. Overall, the multiplayer in this game was just very meh, and that's the verdict.
That leaves us with the battle mode feature. You know, the game mode that replaced traditional multiplayer from Doom 2016 and led to the discontinuation of Snap Maps feature, which might I add had pretty much limitless potential. Yeah, that game mode. So, does it warrant the removal of these features, and is it going to compete with other popular multiplayer components? I'm gonna straight up say no, immediately. Battle mode is very, very bare bones, with only 6 maps, a limited assortment of demons, one singular game mode, and a weird XP tier leveling system that offers no incentive to play at all. You can either play as the Slayer, who plays exactly how he does in the single player, or you can have 6 demons to choose from. the Marauder, which is great at close range combat, the Revenant serves as a ranged attacker, the Mancubus takes on the role of tank, the Archvile offers a lot of support options, and the Pain Elemental kind of floats around doing whatever he wants. Each game consists of 5 rounds, and yeah, there's some good stuff in there. It has the potential to be high action and high intensity, but personally I just think battle mode is, well, boring. Can I reiterate? 6 fucking maps? Might I add they just changed areas from the campaign, so the all new exhilarating game mode from Doom Eternal that we've all been waiting for since its announcement has 6 shitty recycled maps? Wow. Great effort. Might I add that the loadout feature for the demons in this game is completely and utterly pointless. It's either a choice of do you want to spawn a box to heal yourself or spawn a box to do damage. Wow. Such amazing abilities, coloured boxes. I think the main problem with this multiplayer component is that it starts off cool but quickly gets really old. It actually makes me miss the multiplayer from Doom 2016. And if you watched my previous review of that game, you'd know how I feel about Doom 2016's multiplayer. I'm not impressed with battle mode. I don't understand. Doom is essentially the original arena shooter FPS multiplayer game, and yet the modern Doom games can't offer an experience worth playing. I really thought this battle mode was going to be really interesting, but it has the depth of a puddle. At this point, I honestly think the best bet for a multiplayer component in the future Doom games is to either bring back traditional multiplayer and also have some sort of PvE horde mode where you can survive infinite rounds of demons with friends, with the demons progressively rising in numbers as the rounds go on. I think that'd be so fucking fun. I think battle mode shouldn't have even been in the game. It's bare bones. It just can't qualify as a standalone multiplayer component. Maybe if battle mode was simply an addition to the traditional Doom 2016 style of doing multiplayer, then it would have been far more passable, but on its own, it's just not worth it for me. So I've been waiting for Doom Eternal for a long while. 4 years. I loved Doom 2016, as I've reiterated throughout this video many times, and I'm so glad that Doom Eternal took everything that the previous game did well and amplified the experience by 100. Doom has honestly never been better. The intense gameplay, interesting and unique weapons, abundance of secrets and collectibles, replayability of the campaign, amazing soundtrack, and beautiful environments are what make Doom Eternal one of the best FPS games I've played in years. Yeah, in my opinion it has a lackluster multiplayer mode, but I know that a lot of people will probably still continue to enjoy battle mode. It's one of those multiplayer modes that I can see garnering its own specific audience. Regardless, the campaign is more than enough to justify buying this game. If you like FPS games, if you like Doom, or if you're bored out of your fucking mind, then I implore you to pick up Doom Eternal. It's true, unapologetic, unadulterated fun. Thanks for watching everyone. Take care.